So you'll be able to trade items above max cash on the G. The money pouch will also go up to that value as well.
Hey guys, welcome back to another video. In this video, I am going to be going over the recent announcements, discussing the upcoming changes in death costs, as well as some changes to the Grand Exchange and the maximum cash value that you can trade on the Grand Exchange and your coin pouch. These changes were discussed in an interview with the RS Guy and Mod Sponge and Mod Jack, and it was quite insightful. They talked all about death costs and the changes that they are planning on implementing, as well as some changes to combat inflation and change the money cap on the Grand Exchange. So let's start with their discussion on death costs and how they are going to be changing them.
It's like a double punishment, right? Dying is bad already. You don't need to be punished for dying. You're already punished for dying.
You're not getting compensation for, you're not getting a boss kill, you're not getting the loot.
You may have lost your consumables or whatever.
It makes more sense for money to leave the game through the players that are farming bosses for 1,000 hours straight without dying, right? That's where you want the money to leave. You don't want some guy being introduced, dying and going, oh, I don't want to do this anymore. And they brought nothing into the game. They've just had money leave.
So the high level version of the changes we're making is essentially just reducing death costs. There's some specific maths. This probably isn't the right place to go through the specific maths, but you know, the costs have got wildly out of control. So we've looked at various models of how we can reduce the cost and make it fair at different levels of play, make sure that it's not unfairly punishing any particular group, and just massively lower death costs across the board. I think that's just the good message. What we haven't done is completely remove death costs. You know, I mean, obviously that's an option on the table. It's just death is free, as we've talked about a little bit. Like the risk and the punishment are in the wrong place.
Yes.
But if we completely remove death costs, then we remove any incentive to think about what you're doing and think about what gear you're using. I think in some situations you could see anywhere near as like 10% of what you're currently paying. It very much depends on the setup you currently have.
So as you guys heard right there, the death costs are going to be changed to reflect about 10% of what you are currently paying, which is going to be a substantial reduction. Some high-end gear setups would have had to pay upwards of 10 to 20 million coins to reclaim your items, so that will be reduced to about 1 or 2 million coins at most. Also, I should mention that the Ring of Death is also going to be reworked. They do not want this ring to be a crutch for players when doing PvM. So what they're going to be doing is giving the Ring of Death a new effect. It might still keep a little bit of death cost reduction in it, but the main effect of the Ring of Death is going to be changed, and so that should be a pretty good positive change, and hopefully we're going to be able to use some different rings as well. Another thing that I really liked, where they were discussing who should be taxed based on death costs, they really were talking about how new players getting into bossing, you know, it isn't really fair for them to get punished to just learn a new boss. Whereas the players that are high-end PvM players, they already know how to do these bosses and they're going on 100 kill streaks. They're not being punished, and basically the gold sink is coming from these newer players. These players trying to get into PvM and bossing, which in my opinion is the best part about the game. So I really do like the idea that they do want to tax these players who are doing really well with bossing on high kill streaks and bringing a ton of items and coins into the game. Now, as they mentioned, they can't just get rid of death costs altogether. It is a pretty good money sink for RuneScape, and it does help the economy and the inflation problem. However, reducing it will cause a lot less money to be taken from the game. So in order to mitigate this and basically take more money from those players who are bringing lots of items and gold into the game, they are going to be implementing a 1% GE tariff for all transactions made on the Grand Exchange.
So we are slightly concerned that by lowering death costs, it will have an effect on inflation. Inflation will go up because less money is, regardless of our judgment of whether the correct money is leaving the game from the correct people, a large amount of money is leaving the game. We've done some analysis on where the sources of money are, and death costs account for a large amount of the money that leaves the game. Our game doesn't have that many gold sinks, and death costs is a huge one. So if we massively lower death costs, we are massively lowering the gold sinks in our game, more cash is coming into the game. In fact, we're incentivizing people to do PVM by reducing death costs. So even more cash is going to come into the game as a result. So it's a double hit on inflation. So we feel like we've got to couple that with something to remove gold from the game. And so the solution that we've settled on is adding a tariff to GE trades. So every successful GE trade will essentially like destroy 1% of the gold.
1%, just 1%. Across the board, flat static. Is that for making purchases or for selling items or for both?
Let me think how it works. So it's applied to the gold that's given to the seller. Like the seller receives 1% less gold than they would otherwise have received.
So we are going to be getting that 1% grand exchange tariff on all trades made on the GE. And personally, I think this is a great idea. I really like the idea of reducing death costs. It allows players to have more incentive to start doing PVM and learning new bosses, which is, as I said, in my opinion, the best part about RuneScape and something that a lot of players will enjoy. So I really like the idea of reducing that death cost, and then adding this grand exchange tariff. I think it is also just a fantastic idea. Inflation in RuneScape has been a problem for a while, and this is definitely a great way to take a lot of money out of the game. Recently, they did release a 1% grand exchange tariff on the old school grand exchange, and they did take a lot of money out of the game with that update. In the first 6 days of the grand exchange tax being in the game for old school RuneScape, it basically destroyed 180 billion GP just in the first 6 days. So I really do think that this will be an excellent gold sink for RuneScape 3, and despite the sellers getting 1% less gold, I don't think it will have a substantial impact on people buying and selling on the grand exchange. So I think it is an excellent idea, and it should really help reduce inflation. Now, a lot of people think that when you are reducing inflation, the prices of these items are going to go down. Well, that's not necessarily the case. That's only the case if you have negative inflation. The idea is just reducing the rate of inflation down to something more substantial so that prices still do rise a little bit, but just not as high as they have been in recent years. Now, another excellent change that is going to be coming along with the grand exchange tax is an increase to the cash value that you can trade on the grand exchange, and an increase to the maximum cash value you can hold in your coin pouch.
So you'll be able to trade items above max cash on the GE. Will also be, the money pouch will also go up to that value as well.
So again, this is another amazing change that will really help RuneScape. It was a bit ridiculous that you couldn't trade items above max cash, especially with a whole lot of items being above that level, including a lot of the high tier PVM gear. So this is definitely going to be a popular change for the game, and essentially we will never hit that max cash stack. There is theoretically a number, but it would take hundreds of years to ever reach that, so we don't have to think about that problem at all anymore, which is fantastic. And so that is all the really important information in the interview. I will be linking the entire video in the description down below. It is a 50-minute video, but if you guys are interested, there were some interesting topics discussed, including just Mod Jack and Mod Sponge's opinions on death costs and inflation and how it is affecting RuneScape. So if you are interested in that, I will link that down below. But if you guys did enjoy this recap, please hit that thumbs up button and subscribe for more RuneScape 3 content. And let me know in the comments down below how you feel about the 1% grand exchange tax. I do think that a lot of people are in favor for it, but it is a bit controversial, so I'm sure there are some of you that may not really like this idea. So let me know in the comments down below. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one. Peace.